All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rise Zion. My name is Seth, and I hope you're all having a very terrific Tuesday. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, but something seems to be stirring in the heart of America. We feel it as a change in our national conversation, in politics, and in the divisions that we find even within our own homes, mother against daughter, and son against fathers. And we feel it as we consider the subtle yet powerful words of our presumptive next prophet, President Oaks, and the not-so-coincidental timing of his divinely appointed ascent as the chief judge of Israel. I think that many of us have felt this change creeping up on us over the years, and it has reached a fever pitch that many of us have never experienced before, with the attempted assassination of political leaders and the murder of Charlie Kirk, and then the cold-blooded shootings that occurred in Michigan at an LDS chapel. These are not the only incidences of hate, violence, and contentions that have sprouted like thorns in our society across the world. But indeed, many of us believe that we have come to a turning point where our constitutional rights can't be guaranteed in a society that no longer values them. The Bill of Rights and the Constitution isn't worth the paper that it's written on if we don't have a culture and people who support them. Latter-day Saints remember a prophecy given by the prophet Joseph Smith in Nauvoo. He warned that when the Constitution is upon the brink of ruin, that the Latter-day Saints will be the staff upon which the nation will lean, and they shall bear the Constitution away from the verge of destruction. This is a paraphrase from the prophecy recorded by Martha Jane Corey on July 19th of 1840. Eliza R. Snow also reflected on the prophet's words, saying, "I heard the prophet say, the time will come when the government of these United States will be so nearly overthrown through its corruption that the Constitution will hang as it were by a single hair, and the Latter-day Saints will step forward to its rescue and save it." James Burgess, in his personal journal, after he heard the prophet teach, the time would come when the Constitution and government would hang by a brittle thread, and this people will step forward and save it. Now, the Constitution hanging by a thread quote can also be found in the Journal of Discourses. This prophecy was spoken at a 4th of July celebration in 1854 in the Salt Lake Tabernacle by Brigham Young himself, who attributed it to Joseph Smith, who said, "Will the Constitution be destroyed? No, it will be held inviolate by this people. And as Joseph Smith said, the time will come when the destiny of the nation will hang upon a single thread. At that critical juncture, this people will step forth and save it from the threatened destruction. It will be so." This prophecy has circulated frequently in Latter-day Saint thought and publications, and has even been quoted by non-LDS sources, unaware that it traces back to the prophet of the Restoration. The Lord has certainly raised prophets in these latter days who have warned us and forewarned us. They have been raised up to defend the Constitution of the United States and to guide us safely through the latter days. Their remarks are not just for members of the church, but they speak as God's mouthpiece to the entire world. The man next in line to be sustained as prophet, President Dallin H. Oaks, has spent his entire professional life defending constitutional government and religious liberty. Could it be that the Lord has prepared a constitutional lawyer, a Supreme Court judge, and a family-centered prophet, seer, and revelator for the very moment that Joseph Smith foresaw in vision? In today's episode, we'll look at what President Oaks has taught about the Constitution, the family, and about the way both must be defended together. We'll look at what Joseph Smith said, and we'll ask the question, are we entering a time when the saints will have to rise, not with anger or militancy, but with faith and wisdom to preserve the very principles of freedom and family that God ordained for this land? A viewer of the show recently sent me an email that highlights what I think many people are feeling. She wrote, "Is it possible that President Nelson has been preparing us for conflict? He said that in coming days it will not be possible to survive spiritually without the constant guiding influence of the Holy Ghost. Is it possible also that President Oaks is the next in line to prepare to lead this spiritual battle? He has been a judge of the land, and if he is sustained as prophet, he will also be a judge in Israel, a judge over the entire world. Could it be that we are entering the time when the Constitution hangs by a thread?" Her question captures what many are quietly wondering. Is there a prophetic connection between the coming transition in church leadership and a growing strain on America's founding principles? A connection between the violence and hatred that both President Russell M. Nelson and President Oaks have warned us to avoid. They have exhorted us to be peacemakers and to avoid contention in public life. President Oaks is not a newcomer to these grave political and constitutional concerns. He has an extensive legal background and is considered an expert on U.S. Constitution, which he has studied for over 60 years. His experience includes serving as a law clerk for Chief Justice Earl Warren of the U.S. Supreme Court after graduating from the University of Chicago Law School in 1957. He was a professor of law and served as interim dean at the University of Chicago Law School. His legal research included writing about the Fourth Amendment. He served for 3.5 years as a justice on the Utah Supreme Court. He served as legal counsel to the Bill of Rights Committee at the Illinois Constitutional Convention in the first half of 1970. He worked in private practice, specializing in corporate litigation, and also vigorously defended the U.S. Constitution rights, protections, and privileges as a practitioner of criminal defense law. He consistently has emphasized that the Constitution is the foundation of our government and many other free societies throughout the entire world, providing structure and limits on government powers. He has identified 5 core inspired constitutional principles, including popular sovereignty, federalism, the separation of powers, fundamental rights, and the rule of law. President Oaks consistently teaches that citizens have a responsibility to uphold and defend the U.S. Constitution and its principles. And that's very key as we're considering the questions that we've just posed. He offers suggestions that include understanding the Constitution in the first place. Citizens should seek to understand the Constitution's principles and to teach them to other people, and especially to our children. He stresses the vital purpose of the entire Constitution is to be governed by the law and not by individuals, and that loyalty should be to the Constitution and its principles, not to any office holder. He has shared his distress about how national issues are handled when one group seeks to entirely prevail over all others, including when individuals feel that others are invoking constitutional rights like free exercise of religion and freedom of speech to deny or challenge their core beliefs. He teaches that the Constitution was established to ensure maximum freedom for people to act according to their individual choices, agency in other words, which is the most desirable condition for the exercise of moral agency. Religious freedom is a key focus of his commentary on constitutional law. He notes that the guarantee of the free expression of religion or religious freedom is the first expression in the First Amendment, and it is the cornerstone of American democracy. He maintains that religion is valuable to society and its organizations make a unique contribution and therefore should have special legal protections. He explains that while religious belief is protected against government action, the practice of that belief must have some limits, as it must be qualified by the government's responsibility to further compelling interests, such as the health of society overall. He affirms the importance of defending the right of conscious and religious freedom for all people, whatever their beliefs, stating that the principle which would trample upon the rights of one denomination would trample upon the rights of others. He also notes that unpopular minority religious groups, such as Latter-day Saints, are especially dependent upon the constitutional guarantee of free exercise of religion. In a 2009 address at BYU, Idaho, entitled Religious Freedom,
"In choosing my subject, I have relied on an old military maxim that when there is a battle underway, persons who desire to join the fray should march to the sound of the guns. So it is that I invite you to march with me as I speak about religious freedom under the United States Constitution. There is a battle over the meaning of that freedom. The contest is of eternal importance, and it is your generation that must understand the issues and make the efforts to prevail."
Based on his experience and his quotes, it is very likely to me that the Lord has prepared President Oaks for this moment. And the fact that he has called upon members in the past, it is very likely that he will call upon them in the future to defend the very pillars of our society as the Lord's prophet. In fact, I believe that we're beginning to see President Oaks laying the groundwork for the Lord's battle plan in the near future.
What follows now was written and approved weeks before, but it still represents my teachings inspired by the Lord. The family proclamation, announced exactly 30 years ago, declares that the family is ordained of God and is central to the Creator's plan for the eternal destiny of His children. It also declares that God's commandment for his children to multiply and replenish the earth remains in force. And we further declare that God has commanded that the sacred powers of procreation are to be employed only between man and woman lawfully wedded as husband and wife. As then Elder Russell M. Nelson taught a BYU audience, the family is, quote, pivotal to God's plan. In fact, a purpose of the plan is to exalt the family, end of quote.
He warned us again prophetically, inspired by the Lord, he said, that across most of the Western world, birth rates are in decline. And this is something that is very concerning.
For nearly 100 years, the proportion of households headed by married couples has declined, and so has the birth rate. The marriages and birth rates of our church members are much more positive, but they have also declined significantly. It is vital that Latter-day Saints do not lose their understanding of the purpose of marriage and the value of children. That is the future for which we strive. Exaltation is a family affair, President Nelson has taught us. Quote, only through the saving ordinances of the gospel of Jesus Christ can families be exalted, end of quote. The national declines in marriage and childbearing are understandable for historic reasons, but Latter-day Saint values and practices should improve, not follow those trends.
Many people today don't understand why a declining birth rate is so threatening. In fact, if you were to ask the average Joe or Jane on the street what they thought about the fact that across the Western world there are fewer families and babies, they would sadly likely view it as a very positive thing, in fact. But what people don't understand is that a healthy society needs enough young people to care for the elderly, to serve in the military or public safety, to innovate new technology, to work and to support a tax base that keeps constitutional institutions running. The new generation enters the workforce and generates a healthy economy. If there are no people, there is no economy. In terms of the church, the rising generation are also helping to build Zion on earth and to prepare for the second coming of Jesus Christ. When birth rates fall below the replacement rate, which is about 2.1 children per woman, the population eventually ages and shrinks to dangerous levels. That creates heavy pressure on governments to borrow, tax, or even centralize their power, often at the expense of personal freedoms. History shows us that nations with chronically low fertility either import large numbers of new immigrant workers quickly, thus creating cultural and political strain, as is the case in Great Britain, for example, or they face slow economic decline and political instability. The immigration problem that many European countries and the United States is currently facing is that they see the culture and values of their country changing due to the massive number of immigrants from other countries that often do not hold the same values that they hold. The government has been forced to introduce more people to keep their economy and labor force alive. And why? The fact of the matter is because people aren't having enough children. And governments are spending money that they don't have, leading to economic hardships that exacerbate the birth rate further. When a culture puts comfort, personal fulfillment, and consumption ahead of building and nurturing families, it gradually loses the very virtues, responsibility, sacrifice, long-term thinking, that keep a constitutional republic strong. A society that forgets the family tends to look increasingly to the state to provide meaning, security, and care. And that shift can slowly erode constitutional limits on government power and reduce the space for faith and freedom. As the Family of Proclamation to the World powerfully warned 30 years ago, we warn that individuals who violate covenants of chastity, who abuse spouse or offspring, or who fail to fulfill family responsibilities will one day stand accountable before God. Further, we warn that the disintegration of the family will bring upon individuals, communities, and nations the calamities foretold by ancient and modern prophets. We call upon reasonable citizens and officers of government everywhere to promote those measures designed to maintain and strengthen the family as the fundamental unit of society. We often think of calamities as disasters from outside or natural disasters, but many of them come simply from the inner weakening of society, fractured homes, declining population, economic stress, and the temptation to trade liberty for promised security. And this is why President Oaks emphasized it is vital that Latter-day Saints do not lose their understanding of the purpose of marriage and the value of children. The weakening of the family is a weakening of constitutional rights and leads to instability and possible collapse of the future. So what can we do as disciples of Jesus Christ in this pivotal time? As President Oaks pointed out, the problem of a declining birth rate is multifaceted, but there are things that we can do. Most importantly, we can strengthen our own families and teach them correct principles and values. We can support reasonable governance that makes starting a family possible in the first place, for those who worry about economic considerations. We can turn off technology that has been so poisonous in spreading false teachings and ideologies that are not aligned with gospel principles and are in fact often anti-human. And as Elder Oaks rightly pointed out, technology and entertainment often distract us from meaningful bonding with our families. Evidence also strongly suggests a correlation between increased cell phone use and mental illness in youth. In the end, this is not about partisanship or panic. It's about faith in Jesus Christ, about the eternal nature of families, and about the principles of liberty that allow both to thrive.
Following Christ and giving ourselves in service to one another is the best remedy for the selfishness and individualism that now seems so common. Parents also have a duty to teach their children practical knowledge apart from gospel principles. Families unite when they do meaningful things together. Family gardens build family relationships. Happy family experiences strengthen family ties. Camping, sports activities, and other recreation are especially valuable to bond families. Families should organize family reunions to remember ancestors, which lead to the temple. Parents should educate children in the basic skills of living, including working in the yard and home. Learning languages is a useful preparation for missionary service and for modern life. The teachers of these subjects can be parents or grandparents or members of the extended family. Families flourish when they learn as a group and counsel together on all matters of concern to the family and its members. Some may say, but we have no time for any of that. To find time to do what is truly worthwhile, many parents will find that they can turn their family on if they all turn their technologies off. And parents, remember, what those children really want for dinner is time with you. Great blessings come to families if they pray together, kneeling night and morning to offer thanks for blessings and to pray over common concerns. Families are also blessed as they worship together in church services and in other devotional settings. Family bonds are also strengthened by family stories, creating family traditions, and sharing sacred experiences. President Spencer W. Kimball reminded us that stories of inspiration from our own lives and those of our forebears are powerful teaching tools. They are often the best sources of inspiration for us and our posterity.
We need not fear for the future. God has prepared leaders for this time, and you, that's right, you are one of them. Whether you are a new parent or a grandparent, everyone can be a leader within their family and help support the family. He has prepared families, communities, and covenants that can stand unshaken. The Constitution may yet be tested, but the Lord has shown the way. Strengthen the family, uphold divine law, teach constitutional principles, and walk by the Spirit. If we do this, we will be the staff that heals the nation and prepares the world for the return of the Prince of Peace. You're standing at a pivotal moment in history with the power to help shape how the prophecies of old unfold. Every day we are literally standing on a hinge point of history. We don't have to choose chaos. We can choose Zion. We can choose to change our fate, to prepare the world for the return of Jesus Christ with faith, courage, and hope. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Now, before you go, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Our goal was to reach 40,000 subscribers in 2 months, and we've reached that goal. So we need to come up with a new goal, you guys. If you'd like, please also consider becoming a member to the channel to help support our channel and to help our volunteers who have so diligently been working behind the scenes to make this channel a success. When you become a member, you are rewarded with some cool perks, including custom emojis and custom name badges next to your name. Also, we'll be doing a raffle for members only, so make sure to become a member. Make sure to check out our live streams in the evening every Thursdays. And if you'd like to support the channel in other ways, please check out our website, risezion.org. There we have t-shirts available for pre-order. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye.